Hi guys, it's Wednesday. It's youth night. Hey Kaylee, will you close that? All right, we forgot to close the door. We're good now. Hey, say hi, Brendan. Brendan's here.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Phil is not here. I guess he's at work. Yeah,
Yes.
I can't ever keep up with Phil's schedule. Kaylee is here tonight. She's back in the background. She's gonna monitor some of your comments. Everybody say hi, Kaylee. And Nathan is here as usual. Mine is not coming. So. All right, a couple of announcements real quick. We are working on the next, let's just say, 6 months of youth activities, the direction of the youth group, direction of the junior youth. And we're having a meeting tomorrow night to discuss a lot of those things. On that agenda is, you're coming to the meeting, right?
Yeah, I have to respond to that.
On that agenda is Revolution. If you've never been to Revolution, man, that's an amazing trip. I highly recommend it. It's going to be Labor Day weekend, hopefully. And then we're just gonna schedule a few other things. Looks like we're probably gonna try and work on a high school slash college student slash adult kayak float trip. So that's coming. So stay tuned for further details on that. As far as the church goes, we are back into regular services. 9:30 Sunday school, 10:30 worship, then evening classes and sessions on Sunday. So this is your invitation. I would love to see you all on Sunday.
We're also back here on Wednesday nights too.
We do have a summer program going on Wednesday night. What that looks like is 6 o'clock next door. We have a little food, a little Bible study, a little fellowship, just kind of hanging out. It's kind of nice. It's kind of nice to just kind of see everybody again and just get back around people. Couple get to know you questions for tonight. Just two. We're gonna maybe three. I think we added one. We were talking before we went live. We might have added one. Anyway, so question number one. What is or was your favorite class in school? Like, where's my history people at? We're gonna talk some history tonight. For me, it's history. All right, we're gym.
Yeah.
Gym.
I was gonna say mine was either a toss up between gym and lunch, but if I had to pick an actual subject, it would have been history.
Does lunch count as a class?
Probably not.
Probably not. Probably not.
Let's go with advisory. That's
Advisory.
that's actually a class.
Advisory.
Yeah,
Okay, Kaylee, what was your favorite class? Lunch does not. Lunch is not a class.
Subject would be English.
Huh. Okay. All right, Nathan.
I sound like a total nerd. Geometry. Man.
Geometry.
Geometry. Okay. All right. Isn't that just a bunch of shapes? Isn't that geometry?
That's what I thought.
Isn't that the whole consumption of geometry? It's just a bunch of shapes.
I started out geometry and then had to be bumped down to informal geometry because it's not just shapes.
Yeah.
All right, Kaylee's here. She's monitoring some of these comments tonight. Kaylee, what do you got here?
Julie said she liked English.
English.
Dylan likes
Journalism major. Who likes history?
Dylan.
My man.
Maybe likes choir. Phil likes
Okay.
psychology.
Okay.
Choir was probably my least favorite class when I was
Biology?
choir.
Quant. Oh, biology. Phil. Phil said
Yeah.
biology.
Right.
Okay, biology.
I will
Yeah?
say this. I will say this about history. I had great history teachers,
Yeah.
so it made
Like
the
history.
class very enjoyable. I
Yeah.
could see having a very monotone, don't care kind of teacher for history. I could see why that could be boring for some people, but I was lucky to have some good history teachers, so I really liked it.
So we were in school. This is like 100 years ago. We had a pretty cool biology teacher. We dissected a shark.
Not
Like-
a pig.
No, we did a shark, and we were playing with the eyeball was like a marble. We were playing with that, like throwing it around the classroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, we dissected a shark, which was awesome.
Pigs. I was we did I'm sitting in the room next to them because I couldn't handle it.
Really? Oh man, I cut anything open. It was awesome.
My freshman year history teacher, Mr. Spicer, he did a great job. Like
Spicer's
I remember one
Yeah.
one class we came in and he was wearing a full uniform, what they'd be wearing in World War One, and he had like,
Yeah.
the desk set up like trench warfare. I mean, he like really got into it.
Cool.
Really, he's a great history teacher.
Okay. Anything else before we move on in the comment section? Okay. Question number 2. Now, don't jump ahead of me, Facebook. All right. Question number 2 is not what is your favorite restaurant. So don't type in what's your favorite restaurant. It is what's your favorite type of restaurant. I'm talking Italian, steakhouse. I just want to get some feedback here because I'm fixing to go out to eat. I don't even know what or where, but I gotta go out to eat. Like I'm fixing to go to the steakhouse and I'm just gonna order like 3 steaks, take them home. I don't even care.
Yeah.
What about you?
Am I allowed to say pub? Because that's what Red Robin kind of identifies as.
I mean,
I just like
when you say pub, are you talking like a restaurant
yeah.
that has a bar? Or are you talking about a bar that
I'm
serves
talking.
food?
I'm
'Cause
talking.
there's a
like,
difference, Facebook.
I'm talking like Applebee's type
Yeah, okay.
setup. Not saying I like Applebee's, but
I can get behind Applebee's for
Yeah.
a quick fix.
eh.
It's okay.
But I'd have to say any burger joint. If they've
So
got
you're down with
burgers.
Red Robin.
Yeah.
That's basically what you're
Okay.
getting at. Kaylee? Mexican. Doesn't it get tired though? Like really? So you can just like do Mexican all the time? Okay.
I will say I would go to Mexican anytime.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Nathan.
It's never the same. Because I'm never in the mood for the same thing.
Okay.
Like, I could go somewhere and eat the same thing, like, day after day, but, like, the thing that I want is, like, one type of thing.
Okay. I can get behind that. So you like
universal.
you like a wide array of choices. So you need a big menu is what you're saying. You need like a
And that's a big thing for me too. If they don't have a big
Yeah.
menu, like
Well, it's Joey B's has a big menu. Go to Joey B's on Manchester Road. Well, there's one in South County too. Joey B's, big menu. Check it out. Joey B's, awesome. Okay, what you got, Kaylee?
Agrees with me. She says Mexican.
Mexican, Amy out. All right.
Dylan Herbert said fast food.
Dylan, that was not a choice. Man.
Says Mexican for her first choice and Chinese for her second choice.
Okay.
I love some Chinese.
that's like a 2 times a year thing for me.
Once a year, maybe once a year for Chinese.
Bill said Italian and
Italian, really? So I don't mind Italian food, but it's never gonna be my go-to.
Yeah.
In, like, actual Italian food.
Yeah, like real
or,
Italian
like,
food.
Americanized.
No, we have an Italian district
Pasta
in
house.
St. Louis, down there, the hill. That Italian food down there on the hill is authentic, and for most of them, not all of them. But yeah, it's just not my go-to. Like I can get behind it.
There's
but
one restaurant, Calico's, I think,
Calico.
in St. Louis, like down by the stadium.
Yeah, I don't
Actually.
know if I've ever been there. I know what you're talking about though.
It's really good.
Hey, Craig Bird's here. Hey, Craig, how you doing, man? I've been meaning to text him. Get with him. Phil Sanders says seafood also. All right. Anything else before we move on? Question number 3. We were talking before we went live today, and we were trying to decide. This is kind of a product of your upbringing, okay? This question, and so it's just kind of like, obviously it can change, but partially how you were raised. Are you a beef person? Are you a chicken person? And then they start throwing in other suggestions like pork and like
You said fish.
fish. And Brendan said, "Isn't fish a vegetable?" And I'm like, "Wait, what?" Okay, so the question is,
According to Ron Swanson, it's a vegetable.
okay, according to Ron Swanson, fish might as well be a vegetable. Okay, so you have beef or chicken. I guess if you want to, pork or fish. Beef, chicken, pork, or fish. Do you lean towards beef, chicken, pork, or fish? I guess for me, I'm beef.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, like I said, I like a burger, so
yeah,
I don't want no chicken sandwich.
beef.
Yeah, there's over here shaking their heads.
Chicken.
Kaylee's chicken.
Yeah, Kaylee's chicken all the way.
All right.
So
So chicken, beef, beef, beef. What say you, Facebook? What do you got?
I see a lot of beef.
Beef from Phil. Beef from Matt Corbett.
but if I go to the Mexican restaurant and they say chicken or beef,
It's
I'm
beef.
taking chicken nachos.
What?
I'm taking chicken nachos.
No, you got to get that fajita quesadilla, that one
But if
giant quesadilla with steak all up in there, and then you pour the cheese queso in it.
If I get a
You know what I'm
chimichanga, then,
You know what I'm
then we're
talking
back to beef.
All right.
Hey, Clifford said beef.
Beef. All right.
So everybody's
Okay.
I'd like to point out, Phil says beef with a side of chicken wrapped.
with fish as an appetizer.
pork wrapped chicken.
Miss you, Phil.
That's chicken.
Chicken wrapped pork. Huh.
All right.
That's supposed to be chicken wrapped in.
Wrapped in.
That'd be easier.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into our content tonight. Tonight is level 4 of our leadership series. So, again, I want you to picture the staircase. You can only take one step at a time. Dylan Corbett. The first step was what? Anybody remember?
First step was
Learning. First step was learning. Second step was performing. Third step was leading. Tonight is the fourth step. It is developing leaders. We're going to talk about when you have mastered, and you don't even really master those things. You're continuing to learn and do those things. The first 3 steps, but now you're ready to move on in the realm of leadership to the fourth step,
right.
which
I
is
think-
developing other leaders.
Yeah, I think every step of them, you'll always be.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way: the first step, learning, you'll be doing that throughout all steps. You'll be learning
Right.
every step.
And by the way, with learning, if you read 15 minutes a day, you can read a book a month. Pick up a book. All right, go ahead.
We were laying in bed last night, and Kaylee told me to start reading. So
Yeah.
I did
We have 2 libraries at this church.
Yeah.
We have a youth library filled with leadership books, actually,
Mhm.
and then we have a regular library that I don't ever really go in.
Yeah.
I probably should though.
Right.
And
I'm
that's
sure
true.
there's good stuff in there.
And then I steal books out of John's office sometimes.
Yeah.
Don't tell John. All right. So we talked a lot about how leadership is really about service. And we're really going to kind of hone in a little bit on that tonight. Because it's really simple if you think about it. Level 4 leaders. Okay, so developing leaders. Level 4 leaders, they know a couple things. They've understood a couple things in the realm of leadership, and they know that results will come from the efforts of other leaders. So if you have a group of leaders, let's say you have this huge, great, big, giant vision, and man, as a leader in this ministry or whatever realm of life you're in, I have this huge vision, and I just know there's no way I'm going to be able to complete this vision by myself.
Mhm.
Developing other leaders is key. You're going to be able to accomplish that vision, especially if you painted that vision in a way that they've caught that vision and they understand exactly where you're headed with that vision in that ministry or whatever it is, fill in the blank. Other leaders are going to come along and be on the same page with you. It's critical.
Yeah, and I'd say that when you tell those other leaders that you've got whatever the case may be, your managers shouldn't just be managers; they should also be leaders. But because when you have a goal that big, it's really important to delegate, and you got to make sure that you're making leaders
Yeah.
that you can trust to delegate.
Yes. And that's a key that we're going to get into in a while. But yeah, you got to be able to trust the people that you're given a task to, or actually, it should get to a point where you shouldn't even have to give them a task because they know exactly where you're at on the same page with the same vision, and they're going to be able to go, okay, this needs to be done, and I'm just going to go do it. I don't need to be told to do it because I'm a leader, and I'm developing other leaders. That's the point. That's where we're getting to here tonight. All right, next level, right? Leaders also know that other leaders have strengths in other areas where you might be weak. And I kind of fail at this one, right? But if we can lean on other people who are also leaders within the same, I'm going to use the term ministry because that's for me, and that's where I want to kind of parallel this to, is where I want to head in that direction. And so, if I'm in ministry and I know something needs to be done and something needs to get done, and somebody else is stronger than me in that,
Yeah.
well, why wouldn't I give it to them? Like, why wouldn't I let them take
Yeah.
and run with it?
Yeah. Sometimes, like we've talked about, a leader can't be prideful. And when you are, it's hard to ask people like, hey, I don't know how to do this. Can you do that for me?
Yeah,
So
you're right. Um, Developing leaders is really, really simple and boils it down. Again, guys, please understand that we're kind of scratching the surface of leadership. Man, we could really make this study. Man, we could probably do this for about a year. But we're just kind of scratching the surface of this study. So please understand that when we kind of skim over some of these things. But I want you to understand that developing leaders, it kind of boils down to. I just dropped my monster. Like that's a party foul in the office here.
Nobody can tell Carol.
Don't tell Carol Napper that I dropped the monster on the carpet.
are these some napkins?
No, it is soaking.
Okay.
All right, so
Show must go on.
it boils down to this. Number one, love people. Number two, know people. And when I say know people, I'm like, okay, so like when you let's say you go to a gas station, you see somebody, or let's say you go to Walmart, and you run into 6 or 7 people that you know. You walk up to them, hey, how you doing? Awesome, great. How's life been? Good. How about you? Good. See ya. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about actually really like, man, ask questions. Figure out where people are. Like understand what makes people tick. Understand what people's dreams are. Understand really what's going on in people's lives. Understand people. Know people.
And all of that, you gotta be genuine with it too. Like I've run into people who they're asking you those things,
Yeah.
but they're not there. You know that if you were to, give them a little quiz on what they just asked you a day later, they're not gonna have any idea. So
Yeah.
leaders have to be genuine as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely.
And it doesn't mean you gotta.
Authentic.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't mean you gotta remember everything about everyone. But if you're gonna ask, mean it.
Number 3, speak truth into their lives. Okay. What I want you to understand is because I come from a realm of ministry here. When I say developing leaders, I also want you to kind of plug in the words making disciples. Okay. The Bible tells us to go and make disciples. Developing leaders is parallel with making disciples. So, number 3 is speak truth into their lives. If you're speaking truth into somebody's life, I mean, that's what discipleship looks like. All right. And number 4, I want to read this verse to you real quick, and then I'll give you number 4. This verse says this. Talked about service and how leadership is about service. And I truly believe that. This verse in Philippians 2, verse 3, it says, let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than himself. So, place others of utmost importance above yourself. Lift them up. Man, our words are powerful, students. And you can lift others up. So number 4 is this. Help lead them where God has called them to lead. So if I'm developing leaders, And I feel like, God is calling a student into maybe the field of missions. I'm going to help lead that student in the direction of missions for their ministry. Each week, when we get to these different levels, I always wanted to have like a biblical example of what we're talking about here, and then a historical example. I've taken the historical example tonight. It's not Tom Brady. Okay. That was a couple weeks ago. If you missed Tom Brady, go back a couple weeks. It was Tom Brady. But I'm going to let Brendan talk to you for a few minutes about the biblical example.
Okay, so finally, we're getting to Paul. And the reason I say finally is because every week we're like, we could use Paul for this because he'd be a great example. But we were saving him for tonight, so finally we're getting to Paul. Now, Paul he does a great job at hitting all of these points. Paul, and if you look at Paul, the key component that Paul has or he has passion for what he's doing. He is completely on board with his goal. So tonight, on the subject of making disciples, we're gonna look at two disciples that Paul kind of worked on. Paul mentored, and their names are Timothy and Titus. Now, if you look in both the first chapter of First Timothy and the first chapter of Titus, you'll see that Paul calls these two his son. Now, they're not actually Paul's son, but that's the way that Paul looks at them. We're at that point we're hitting on loving people. Paul loved these two. Paul wasn't just getting his agenda across and then saying, all right, now go figure this out. Paul actually cared about these two. Paul wanted these two to succeed in this mission. But tonight we're going to read 2 Timothy in chapter 4. We're going to read kind of what Paul had told Timothy that he should do. And this is Paul's charge to Timothy. So again, that's chapter 2 of Timothy Timothy 2, chapter 4, second Timothy. And it says this, I charge thee therefore before God and the Lord Jesus Christ, who shall judge the quick and the dead at his appearing and his kingdom. Preach the word, be instant in season, out of season, reprove, rebuke, exhort with all long-suffering and doctrine. So basically, Paul's telling Timothy here, you need to be ready at any point. You need to be ready to number one, you need to be ready to spread the gospel. Number two, you need to be ready to basically what it means to be instant in season and out of season. There's a time that you expect to share the gospel. There's a time that and a place. Like if we're here at church on a Sunday, we know the gospel is going to be talked about, right? But throughout our daily lives, throughout the week, we're not really thinking about the gospel like we should. We're not really talking about the gospel as we should.
And how many opportunities are we letting pass by?
Exactly. And that's what we're talking about here. If we're being instant in season and out of season like we're supposed to be, if we're being prepared out of season like we're supposed to be, when those opportunities come up, we're going to jump on them. We're going to be quick to take those opportunities. And pretty soon our life is going to reflect what a disciple should be. Now, down one more verse in 2 Timothy, that's verse 3. It says, for the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lusts shall they heap themselves teachers having itching ears. So this is basically Paul's warning, and it goes on a lot longer than that. Paul's warning to them is pretty big. If you read the any book of 1st, 2nd Timothy or Titus, Paul's warning to them is pretty extensive. It's not going to be easy. You're going to run into this, you're going to run into that, but you have to be able to, like I said, you have to be ready. You have to be instant. So, Paul's warning them, there's going to be a time where people don't want to catch on to your goal. People don't want to be a part of your goal. People don't think your goal is even important. But that's why Paul poured in so much into their lives. That's why Paul found it so important to actually make them disciples. It wasn't just here, take this knowledge and do what you will with it. He gave them what they needed to know. Paul knew Timothy and Titus. Paul got to know them. He knew what their struggles were. He knew um, probably pretty close to every aspect of their lives.
Not just, hey, how you doing? Great, see you.
Right, exactly. Like Josh was saying, he was genuine about it. He was real with them. And lastly, he helped them lead where God wanted them to be. He helped lead them to that point where God wanted them. And the book of Timothy and Titus, the two books of Timothy and the book of Titus, those are letters directly to those two. He was giving them the resources that they need. He was giving them the encouragement that they needed to complete this task. And one thing I like about it, and I already touched on it, but one thing I like about it was he wasn't hiding anything. He wasn't hiding that it was going to be tough. He wasn't hiding that, you're going to run into some problems. Paul ran into a lot of problems throughout his ministry, and he didn't hide that. And I think that's key as being a leader. Don't give your followers false hope, or don't give those who you are putting in place of leadership, don't give them false hope, and don't give them unreasonable expectations. You got to be real with them, make sure they expect everything that is coming their way.
Well, one thing you kind of touched on there is, as a leader, especially in ministry, if you're the leader of a ministry or any ministry, or you're the leader within that ministry, man, you're going to face criticism like you wouldn't believe.
Oh, yeah.
And that's an obstacle. You're going to have to figure out a way to overcome that and let that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
People want you to fail. Hate to break that to you, but that's true. People want you to fail. Yeah. Especially in ministry. Keep your head up, surround yourself with good leaders, and develop them.
So you have a history.
Yeah, who said history? Who said history earlier?
I did.
So let me cover a quick story real quick about history. I'm not going to talk about Tom Brady, although I probably could. Developing lead. I mean, he developed. Oh, okay. I'm not going to do that. All right. Horatio Nelson. Everybody's like, who? Right?
That was my response.
Lord Horatio Nelson. He commanded the English naval squadron in 1798. During
1798.
Yeah, 17.
A long time ago.
1798. 1798. And during that summer that year, a young upstart was rapidly ascending to power in that region, in that area, in the French army. Okay? His name, Napoleon Bonaparte. He was ordered to take Egypt in the name of the Republic of France. Okay? Napoleon's secret plan at the time, though, was to take his huge fleet, his army, basically, sailors, what you call that? His navy, okay? And he wanted to take it the length of the Mediterranean. He wanted to take Egypt, he wanted to take Syria, he wanted to take Persia, he wanted to take India. England was scared to death of an invasion from France. They were so freaked out about it that most of their defensive budget stayed in England so that they could be in defense mode, right? Because they never know when the French is going to attack. So they're in full-on defense mode. So, the best hope of defeating Napoleon was on open water. All right? Now, Horatio Nelson, he had a smaller fleet with the British because most of their defense was back home. All right. This became the greatest cat and mouse game on open water. And I'm not going to go into all the details, but you guys should read it. It's really kind of interesting. 1798. Can't call him.
Can't do much.
I mean, you can't do much in 1798. All right. So here's what happened. Nelson searched for the French fleet from Naples to Malta and back to Alexandria in Egypt and back, he searched for Napoleon. Now, once Napoleon is sailing out in open water, I mean, without the technology that we have today, it'd be almost impossible to find anything in open water. You got to find them at a place that he's getting ready to attack or whatever. At one point, the French fleet had departed Malta, and they heard the signal guns of the British fleet. So they went silent, and the British fleet, I don't know, like a foggy, misty night, went right by them. Come on. Come on, Horatio. Here's what happened. The French reached Alexandria to take Egypt as the masts of Nelson's ships were breaking the horizon as they were leaving Alexandria. I'm telling you, this went on for months, this back and forth, searching for each other, or Horatio searching for Napoleon. But it was during the days of this cat and mouse back and forth chase that Nelson intensified the development of the young captains of his other ships. So whenever weather allowed, he would invite all the captains of all these other ships, and they would dine together, and they would talk strategy and tactics. But most importantly, what was happening here was Nelson was casting out his vision of what is going to happen when we run across Napoleon, because we're going back and forth. We're going to find him at some point. What's going to happen? They knew that when they caught up with Napoleon, that his captains knew Nelson's intentions so well. They knew his vision. They caught his vision. They understood the strategy so well that they didn't have to use signals. They did have to use lanterns because they wound up. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. They did have to use lanterns because they wound up kind of surrounding Napoleon's fleet. And so there was a danger of crossfire. So they would put 4 lanterns in strategic parts of the ship that they'd already talked about, had it all figured out, so that they wouldn't fire on each other.
So if we go back to last week, we're talking communication there.
Yes, communication. Very well put, communication. So here's what happened. The French, they were docked near Alexandria, and they had prepared for this invasion. They kind of knew, they knew Nelson was looking for them. So they prepared, they kind of lined their ships up against this shoreline. It was real rocky, so it was kind of hard to maneuver ships in and out. They also had like their anchors on a spring so they could quickly shift their ships if they needed to. And the French had the British completely outgunned and outmanned. Once the battle began, Nelson had to rely on his leaders. He had spent all this time developing the leaders, casting the vision, understanding what everyone was to expect of everyone else. Each ship, each captain, each leader knew their role. In this battle, 1,700 men were killed, 1,500 were wounded, and 3,000 were captured from the French fleet. Quick math on that. 6,200 sailors from the French fleet. The British casualties was 218.
Gosh.
Remarkable. Nelson and his leaders' victory emboldened the governments of Turkey, Russia, Austria, and Naples, who all joined together with the British in a coalition against France. Now, Napoleon would eventually rise to power and crown himself Emperor of Europe, but his dominion would be limited and ultimately fail, mainly due to this battle right here. Well, that's a neat story. What's that mean for you and me? Here's what that means. I believe God has great things planned for you, for me, for all of us. But it can't be accomplished by ourselves, number one. Surround yourself with the right people. Develop leaders. Number two, I think God tells us to go. We touched on it a little while ago. God tells us to go make disciples. We're much stronger and more effective when we work together for the cause. So, what's the saying? A three-chord bond is not easily broken.
And with that being said, what if Paul didn't listen to that part? What if Paul was just, he took his goal, he took that calling from God, did his part, and then at the end of Paul's life, he had never met a Timothy or he never met a Titus and never took the time to pass that along.
Yeah.
We'd be living in a very different world because
That's right.
these people are very hold a huge responsibility for the way that the church is today.
Yeah.
So we can't stress that enough. How important it is to number one, you can't do it alone. And number two, you can't.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do it alone.
I mean, how are you ever going to leave a legacy if you don't pour yourself into the lives of other people?
Exactly.
Super important. My last point is this, guys. Whatever our ministry is, developing like-minded leaders who can see the big vision makes that ministry so much stronger. Man, I'm blessed to have a lot of great youth workers in our youth ministry. We got some great youth volunteers. I've got college-age kids. I've got adults that will step up and just, man, because they get it. They understand it. They see the importance of it. They see the vision and the bigger picture. Whatever your ministry, develop leaders that are like-minded and they can catch that vision. Man, makes for a much more solid ministry.
Well-oiled machine.
Yeah, that's right. Love you guys, man. We'll see you back here next week, Wednesday at 7. I'll see you in person Sunday. But I'll see you here for our broadcast where we go into level 5. It's the last level we're going to cover in leadership for now. We may revisit this series at a later time, but for now, this is going to be where we end it. And it's developing leaders who develop leaders. See a pattern here? Let's pray.
Okay. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for all you've given us. Thank you for, once again, Lord, thank you for all the resources you give us to get your gospel out, Lord. I thank you for all the blessings you've given us in this church, Lord. I pray that you just help the church to grow rapidly, Lord. I pray that you just be with each and every person watching tonight. I pray that you just touch their lives and speak to them and have them do what you would have willed for them, Lord. I pray you just forgive me where I fail you. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.